Welcome to GCN Racing. I'm Jeremy Powers. Today we have a super cool show planned for you guys. We were able to sit down with the multiple-time world champ, cycling phenom Mathieu Van Der Poel. We were able to talk with him in the interview about what life's been like during the COVID-19 lockdown and how he's gotten on during that, being a multi-discipline athlete, racing road, cyclocross, mountain bikes, and being good at pretty much all of them. We also were able to use the powers that be here at GCN to wrangle some of his most iconic race footage from the last year's racing season, both cyclocross and road. We were able to have the champ walk us through blow by blow what went down in the races and how he was able to win them. So buckle your seatbelts. This one is super fun. So I asked Van Der Poel to talk us through his race at the Arctic Tour of Norway, which was his first race back after a big mid-season break. A well-deserved one as well, since he had been racing since the cross season had ended. Anyway, the stage was highlighted by an aggressive Steve Cummings from Dimension Data, who almost held on right until the very end, only to be gobbled up by the peloton. It was a patient Van Der Poel who sat in the wheels waiting for the right moment to pounce. And we'll let him take us through the play-by-play.
Yeah, that was my first road race again after my mountain bike campaign, and it was indeed a very hard day. So it was windy and very fast stage, but yeah, I started sprinting from pretty far, and I think the other riders were also. I think everyone suffered during that stage, and yeah, it was really nice to begin my second part of the road season with a win there.
Yeah, because I think when we look back at the coverage, like the wind was there, you were kind of lurking in the front. What I mean by lurking is like you were sitting in the bunch at the front, kind of peering out, but you weren't putting your head in the wind necessarily. You were kind of just sitting there waiting. And Cummings was on a really good day. Like he hit out so many times. It almost seemed like he had like a Energizer bunny, we would say. He like could go forever, and he made it all the way to the end. But I think when I watched the replay of the video, you hit out so early that it took the other riders maybe 3-4 seconds to react. It was like a lot of time before everyone else decides that they're going to try to get in your slipstream. But you kick, but you can see there's just such a delay before everyone realizes that that's you.
Yeah, I think I also launched my sprint from quite far. Normally we start sprinting from 200 or 150 meters, but I started from almost 300, I think. For me, that's the most important thing when I come to a finish line with a group. I want to do my own sprint, and starting too late is quite often more frustrating than starting a bit too early and just trying to ride your own sprint.
How are you finding yourself during this extraordinary time?
I think it's pretty okay for me. I live in Belgium, so we always could ride outside, so that's a big positive thing for me. If you see other countries and other riders, they had to stay inside and do everything inside, and I think that was our luck that we could still go outside, and the weather was also nice in Belgium. So I mainly sat on my bike and just did my rides.
All right, next up we talk about the 2019 Tour of Britain, where Van Der Poel ultimately ends up taking the overall GC, but opened up his account on stage 4, where he was able to really decimate the entire field of hitters at the UK Tour. He was ultimately there to train for the World Championships just a couple weeks down the road. He told us that he was so frustrated with not being able to win one of those first 3 stages that he had really targeted stage 4 to be able to put on a big show of power and determination to take the win. So here he is in his own words.
For sure, I was in a really good shape in Tour of Britain, but I was really aiming for a stage win there, and I kind of messed up the first 3 stages. So that's also the reason why I start sprinting from really far here, because I didn't want to make the same mistake as I did the stages before. And of course, that's a finish line that suits me really well with a nice uphill finish.
When you looked at that stage on paper, did you say that this was one for you? Did you have this kind of blocked out and you knew that you were going to be going for this day?
Yeah, I saw that the finish line suited me really well, but it was actually a really hard stage with quite some altitude meters, so I wasn't sure if I could be in the front at the end. But then I knew that if I was in the front, that it was a finish line that suits me really well, and I just went full gas. Like I said I prefer starting sprinting from far away than holding my legs still a bit too long.
What is your motivation when you wake up in the morning right now?
My biggest motivation is the love for my bike and just riding my bike. I think that is the best thing you can have, and for me it's not really a challenge to ride my bike every day, so I did the only problem not really, but we just could ride with two or alone, and that was strange for a long period because normally we are always riding in groups. But I think, it was quite okay for me. Like I said, I just did my own thing. I didn't do any interval training anymore because it's still a long time before we are hopefully getting back to racing. So I just did my endurance rides, but mostly I did it at just a normal pace. The only hard thing were the Zwift races I took part of. There was the hard part of the training, but I kind of enjoyed it because that was just the closest thing that felt to a competition that I had in the past few months.
It's hard to even put this one in words. Amstel Gold.
Mathieu Van Der Poel's going to do it! Mathieu Van Der Poel, this is incredible! I have never, ever seen anything like this in my life!
One of the races that will go down in the history books as quite possibly one of the greatest road cycling races in the history of the sport, period. Definitely one of the best modern day races we've seen in a very long time. Van Der Poel had hit out and many thought that his day was over. Alaphilippe, Jakob Fuglsang, and Kwiatkowski attacked, and it seemed like a foregone conclusion that those three were going to end up on the podium. Van Der Poel, though, had something different in mind. Here he is talking about how special of a day it was for him.
It's difficult to describe the feeling, but I think, since I've won Amstel, I already explained the finish in every interview I did so far, so then you know that you did something special, and it was just really hectic and really crazy, and we could do that race like a million times again and it would never be the same, and that makes it so special.
Alaphilippe and Fuglsang out front, but they really did play off you, and it almost felt like they played you a little bit. Like they knew that you were going to be aggressive. They waited, and then they came past, and then you were kind of there recovering from your effort. You come back, and then Kwiatkowski and Trenton are able to get away as well, and you sort of roll this, I'll call 400 watt TT or even more all the way through, and you end up barrel rolling these guys to come back to the front. But was there had to have been a moment in there where you were thinking, yeah, okay, the race is gone, but that's the beauty of bike racing, right? Is that it wasn't.
Yeah, of course. When I saw the riders had more than 1 minute gap, for sure, I thought the race was over. Even until the last turn to the left, I thought it was just, then I thought it would be nice to finish in the top 10, my first Amstel. So I just kept on going, and suddenly I saw the leaders riding in front of us.
How would you describe like Fuglsang and Alaphilippe after that and since then? Do you think, and even Trenton for that, like, do you think that those guys, do you guys have good mutual respect? How do you find those guys, and what's the scoop inside? Like, are they still upset about this? Because this is a classic. This is a huge race to have not executed the win on when they were in such a position to be able to do so.
No, I don't think so. I have a good relationship with all of these riders, and afterwards I heard that Alaphilippe had some cramps in the leg, so that's the reason why he didn't want to ride with Fuglsang. And at the end as well, Fuglsang finishes before Alaphilippe as well, so I think it was just really strange race at the end.
Yeah. At this moment right here that we're watching, what's going through your mind? It's possible.
Yeah, there was tailwind in the finish line, so that was also part of my luck. Otherwise, you can't ride at the front like this and still win the sprint of the group. And I had, of course, something to aim for, but I was just hoping someone still would take the lead in the group, but nobody did it. Everyone was just waiting for the sprint, so I had to start sprinting from really far to make it happen. Yeah, I think the combination of doing mountain bike and road racing is not possible if you do grand tours. then it's a bit too hard because it's both summer sports, so that's difficult. But I think you can always combine mountain bike with cyclocross for sure, but also road cycling with cyclocross is, in my opinion, a good combination.
The challenge that he presents, not only for the future of where you plan to go in mountain biking, the Olympic title potentially, and what you think of him as a competitor, as a person.
Yeah, I think Nino is for sure one of the athletes who pushed me to my limits and sometimes above my limits. But I really like that. It took me a few years to really be competitive with him, but that was always my biggest motivation, to one day try to beat him, and just my main motivation was to try and win a World Cup on a mountain bike. But it took me longer than I intentionally would have guessed, but it was quite a long and hard way to get there. But then at the end, when it finally works out, then it's really satisfying. Yeah, Nino is getting a year older. He's not the youngest anymore, but I don't think that for him, as I see him as an athlete, I think he's someone who is capable to be at the highest level until just a few more years. So I don't think that will involve something for him, but I think he's still the main man to beat next year as well.
We couldn't do a piece with Van Der Poel and not talk about some cyclocross. So last up, the big cyclocross race of the year in Loenhout, Belgium. There's so many fans across the course. Literally, fans are everywhere. And Van Der Poel just barely gets off the start grid before chaos happens. This huge flyover gets his front wheel and eats it up. He goes flying off the bike. There's chaos everywhere with riders trying to shoot around to not hit him. He's at the complete back of the field, almost dead last, has to work his way through to get to the front, where he meets up with one of his big challengers of the season, the Belgian Eli Iserbyt. They lock horns and it comes down to a last lap duel between the two of them. Here's Van Der Poel on how that went down.
Yeah, that's true. It's the course is one of my favorites when it's muddy. When it's dry, I don't like it too much, but when it's muddy, it's really technical and hard. And of course, it's close to where I live, and I know a lot of people there. The spectators are something kind of special there in Loenhout. So, but I always like to start over there, and I'm always motivated for that race.
It ended up being that it seemed like a real trough, like a real dip before you hit that first ramp that had been a lot of riders riding through it, and the rut right there was very deep, caught you off guard, and unfortunately, like everybody, you had a problem there at the start. Not a bad crash, just really a fall, but it's because of all the other riders that you're not able to get your machine, and it set you really far back. What was going through your mind at that moment when you had that crash there?
Yeah, they had put some sandbags in front of the bridge, and there was one coming a bit loose, so I crashed on a sandbag on the bridge. That was an important period for me to get better for the Worlds as well. So I just wanted to do my own race and just go 1 hour full gas, and that's what I did.
When you look at the current slate of riders that you're going up against, and Iserbyt, do you think on the right day, someone like Iserbyt is your main protagonist, your main challenger?
Yeah, it could be, of course. He has proven that he had a really good season last year, especially at the beginning. He was the strongest rider. So I think, he for sure could be a tough opponent to beat in the future. But that's the thing. There are always riders who want to beat you, who wants to beat you, and then that makes it so hard that you have to be present every race, every time again, and that's so hard at cyclocross that you have to race sometimes two times a week against the same guys who always want to try and beat you, and that makes it so hard. No, I will race cyclocross for sure, but it will be less than usual. So it will be, I hope, 10 to 15 races this season with the World Championship as a highlight. But that's something I was planning to do already in the future, to do less cyclocross, but still enough to get the hang of it. So I think doing 5 cyclocross races in a season is not enough, especially not if you want to be world champion. You have to have more rhythm and be at the start of of a racing on the first 2 rows, for example, because it's that important to be there at the start immediately.
When you think about that right now, what do you think when you come back to this, what the level is going to look like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a strange kind of racing maybe, but I think it's going to be pretty hard because everyone is going to be real motivated, have fresh legs. So I think the racing will be hard and the pace will be high.
That was a nice chat with a big champion of our sport. I want to thank Mathieu. I want to thank his Alpecin Fenix team for helping us put that interview together. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing him and the rest of the peloton out there racing. I want to lastly thank you guys all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
A virtual fist bump, and thank you so much for taking the time to jam with us. I look forward to when you get back out there, and hopefully we get to see you at some cross races this fall or in between.
Yes, I'll see you guys soon.
Grab a Coke. Let's get into this one. Grab a Coke? Why would you grab a Coke, Jeremy?